Anytime you want to create what's called a user-defined function, okay, what you can do is you can go to the following. Now, let's say we want to find slope. Okay, so the slope equation is m equals the difference of the y's over the difference of the x's. And now, your calculator is already assigned y's to the y variables to specific things. So you can't use those in user-defined functions. So what we're going to do, and what I had you do before, was I had you use, instead of x1, y1, I had you use h1, k1 for your first point, h2, k2 for your second point. Okay. Now, as we get into now that we've talked about the equation of a circle, you see why the h and k were used. Okay, but if we wanted to find this slope equation, here's the way that we can enter this in our calculators. Okay, the first thing is you need to tell the calculator you're going to do the define function. The define function is found in the F4 Other tab. Okay, and it's the very first one. Okay, so you're going to click define. And then you're going to give a name to your function. So I'm going to call this function slope. And you can pick any name that makes sense. You don't want to just put like AAAB, I mean just random things. You want it to mean something. This is the name and what you'll type to access this. So if we alpha lock and then type in slope, okay, the alpha lock is just hit the white button until this little A becomes highlighted in a solid black, and then you just type the corresponding key with the letter above it, so S-L-O-P-E, and then unlock the alpha keys. Okay, so you're just going to name your function next. Okay, after you name your function, what you're going to do is you're going to identify the order of inputs. And you need to tell the calculator next how you are going to enter the data that it's going to manipulate in the equation. So the easiest thing for this would be, let's say, we wanted the, let's say we'll test all of this with the following points. 5, -3, and 2, 7. Okay. If this was what you wanted to enter, when we type this into our calculator, we're going to choose slope, and in parentheses, you need to tell it how you want, or what order you want the information to be presented. Easiest thing to do is just present it straight down the list. First x coordinate, first y coordinate, second x coordinate, second y coordinate, and just write down the list. So that's the order of our inputs. So if we come up here and in terms of h and k, so this represented our h1, k1 values, our h2, k2 values. So that's the order we want these inputs. We want them just to be entered as h1, k1, followed by h2, k2. Now, if you change this up, you have to always enter your information in whatever form that you give this order. So in parentheses here, oops. All right. I need to restart that calculator. All right, so in parentheses here, we need to identify h1, comma k1, the order that we're inputting things, h2, comma k2. Oops. Okay, so this is the order of the inputs. Here's the comma is right above the 9. And you can call it whatever you want to call it. Okay, but the H's and K's, easiest way to think of it. The final step is you're going to write the equation or calculation that's going to be performed to those inputs. So whatever you input here, now we use this slope formula. And so the slope equation is the difference of y's. So we have our y's in terms of k's. So we're going to take k1 minus k2. and we're going to divide that by h1 minus h2. Okay, so you'll write your calculation or equation next. And so if we enter that is equal to, parentheses, k1 minus k2, close the parentheses, divide that by, parentheses, h1 minus h2, close it off. And once you're done with that, you hit enter, and your calculator should say done. That means it recorded that, it stored it. Okay, so when I hit enter, it now says done, and now this equation is stored in my calculator. Okay. So what that means is if I want to go in and see what is the slope of the line passing through these 2 points, 5, negative 3, and 2, 7, the way that you access this is you look under what's called var link, and that's found by taking the second button and then clicking the subtraction key. Okay, so if I go to second var link, now you're going to have a set of functions and definitions or anything that's stored in your calculator. Those of you who have games. Okay, and if you just type a letter, type the key that has the letter next to this. So you can either type 3 for the S, or in this case I'm just going to type T and then I'll scroll up to get to slope. But you can access it through var link, or you can just directly type the name of your function. So you could just alpha lock it and type in the word slope. Now you enter the inputs, so 5, negative 3, 2, and 7, in the order that you had originally defined to enter. And when you hit enter, it gives you your distance. Or I'm sorry, not distance, but it gives you the slope. Okay. So the slope of this line is negative 10 thirds.